Hello and welcome to the Money Marketing Podcast. I'm Katie Pigden, the editor of the publication. I'm delighted you can join us for today's episode, which forms part of a special series with financial planner Chanelle Pattinson. Last year, Chanelle launched her own podcast, Her Future Bright, in which she interviews inspiring women in financial services. Money Marketing is proud to have partnered with Chanelle for the second series. Each week, Chanelle will be finding out about her guests' careers, their achievements, and how they are bringing the profession forward. As Money Marketing's strapline proudly states, financial advice matters. We want to show the world of advice can be a fulfilling career choice. For any aspiring planners and advisors listening, we hope this series helps you make the leap. And if you're looking for more information, visit our Financial Advisor to Be resource on the Money Marketing website. Now it's over to you, Chanelle.
Hey everyone, I'm Chanelle Pattinson and this is Her Future Bright, a podcast where I interview inspiring women in finance. We talk about their careers, their achievements and how they are bringing our profession forward. On this week's show, we have Tessa Lee. Hey Tessa, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Really good. How are you?
Yes, I'm very, very well, thank you. It's really sunny here. I don't know about you. Oh, I can sort of see behind you. It looks quite sunny.
It's a bit grey. It's been nicer this week, but it's quite mild today, which is nice. So yeah, it's all good.
No rain. No rain is always good.
Yet.
Yeah. So for anyone that doesn't know Tessa, she is the managing director of moneyinfo, a private fintech that specializes in client portals and mobile apps for the wealth management industry. So to start things off, Tessa, could you please tell us a bit about where your career started?
Yes, I can. So I don't want to say how many years ago this was, but it was quite a while ago, a few decades ago. I left university having finished a degree in classics and classical archaeology, and I had ambitions to be the next Indiana Jones at that point, but then realised that being Indiana Jones is quite tricky and it's not that great for paying your rent. So I looked, as you did then, in the local paper, and I found a job with a local financial advice firm called TL Clues, based in Warwick, near where I was living at the time. And I applied for a job as a junior administrator, and I got it, which was brilliant. And I started working there with two brilliant directors, Joe and Simon. Simon's actually still my financial advisor today and does the financial advice for moneyinfo as well. So that's lovely.
Wow.
It was a really interesting one, actually, because it was an administrative role, and it perhaps wasn't as glamorous as being the female Indiana Jones, but I learned a lot. And as a business, they specialised in insuring and doing pension schemes and group business for Formula One teams and racing teams and high-risk individuals like, newscasters and cameramen that go into, war-torn places. So there were some really interesting clients, both on the private client side and on the employee benefits side. And that's where I cut my cloth in financial advice, which was, it was really interesting, and I really loved working there. But as part of that, because I was the young whippersnapper, in the team, I ended up looking after the kind of IT systems. And then we had quite an old IT system. It was a sort of a green screen system that you sort of tabbed through. We didn't have Windows and, a mouse at that point. That's how long ago. It makes me sound really old. I'm really not that old. As part of the role, I was involved in selecting a new software system for the financial advice business. And that's where I came into contact with First Software, who produced a system that I suspect many listeners are still using today, called Advisor Office, now part of IRS. And I ended up moving across to them after a few years and started on their help desk, answering client queries as part of the First Software help team. So that's kind of my transition then into what we now call Fintech. We now call Fintech. That word didn't exist in those days. And I sort of started on the help desk, then I moved to second line support. Then, I got into training and consultancy and client relationship management, helping implement people on the system. And I kind of ended up doing pretty much every job in that business apart from coding over the nearly 10 years that I was there. So, and I ended up heading up the product management team before I left to do my own thing. So, that's how I kind of got into software. which was not perhaps the route you kind of expect today, but it was brilliant because, like a lot of people that worked in that business and in my business now today, we had a background in financial advice. So we knew our clients, we took our FPC exams so that we understood, when our clients were talking to them, how things worked in their business. And it was really good from that perspective.
That's really interesting. And that was actually rolls into my next question quite nicely, because I find it really interesting that you've always been in sort of like, I suppose, in my eyes, sort of the modern area of financial services, because you know as well as I do that financial services is quite old school. Like they don't, well, that's a good point, actually can be, because we're seeing massive change now. So I suppose, what was it like sort of working on the more tech side of things and the more modern side of things, but being in the financial service industry when it was quite old school and they maybe weren't so receptive to using these things?
It's an interesting one because at the point I started, financial advice firms were a little bit behind with technology, and we introduced the first Windows-based system, would you believe, into financial advice. This was before the web, so it was quite innovative for firms to have a Windows-based system that they hadn't had before, and it kind of changed how CRM worked then, because we started to use Microsoft-type products and we integrated them within the system. And bear in mind, when I started in the advice firm, we were dictating our correspondence to our clients. So I would have a dictaphone and I would, say, memo to Scottish Equitable as they were then. And I'd dictate, and then it would go into a typing pool who would type up all the correspondence, which would either get posted out or faxed to, clients and providers. And then we kind of put in this new system, and suddenly I was like, well, I don't need to dictate it. I can type it myself straight into the system. I can save it against the record for the client. This is so much more efficient. And, a lot of the advisors would still be dictating, but for us youngsters, it was kind of, well, we can type as quick as we can talk pretty much. So and it changed the way that we started to work. And I think, the firm was pretty receptive to that, I think, because they wanted to modernize things. They had exactly the same drivers as firms talk to me about today when they're looking at new technology. They wanted to make sure they delivered a really high quality client experience. They wanted to make sure that they were as efficient and productive as possible, that they could service more clients more profitably. That hasn't changed. We still see those drivers today, but of course, technology has moved on massively since then. But it's interesting. You see the same patterns happening as technology moves in cycles. And, now we've gone all the way forward from, everything managed with a back office. Then we started to see the shift to web-based technologies. And now we're seeing more and more client-facing technologies coming into the mix as well. So it's been a really interesting journey.
Yeah, I can imagine. And did you never think, oh, actually, I want to go down the actual purely financial services path? Or did you really love that whole tech and financial services?
I kind of liked both. I did consider becoming a financial advisor. It was something, if I'd stayed in that side of things, I think that would have been the natural way to go, because I love talking to people. I'm quite outgoing, so I think I would have gone. I did my FPC exams at the time, and then I did some of the diploma of financial planning and stuff. So I was getting my exams, and I did some of those when I was at the financial advice firm, and I carried on with some of those when I went into technology. But once I was in tech, I absolutely loved it. And I kind of think that's where my calling, really came from. And I just I still got that satisfaction of dealing with people, because I've always been client facing, but also I could be creative because I helped functionally design the software and get that, what I love about delivering software is the satisfaction you get when you see something, you think we built that, and look what it's doing for that particular individual or firm. So it was kind of the technology that grabbed me, I guess.
Yeah, no, amazing. And we're going to go on to money info next, which I'm excited to talk about. But a question that just sort of came to me is, I feel like in the last literally few years, tech has sort of appeared and got better really quickly. I feel like going back sort of when I first started my career sort of 8 to 10 years ago, it wasn't really talked about. There was a little bit of tech and it was developing quite slowly, but I feel like the last few years it's really like not just on the advisor side, but also out into the public, things like free trade, all of these sorts of things. Suddenly they seem to be everywhere. So I just wondered if you've sort of seen that same trend.
Definitely. And we've seen a lot more niche technologies. I think there's been a realization that it's very difficult to get one technology solution that's a one size fits all. You just can't do everything well as a tech provider. So what we're seeing is, I think, and this has partly, of course, been driven by the dreaded pandemic that we've had over the last couple of years. It's forced people to adopt technologies that it might have taken them a few more years to get to. I think they'd have got there eventually, but it's forced us to start using some of these technologies. We're seeing a lot more niche technologies. We're seeing a lot more technologies that are involving the client in the process, very like moneyinfo does, but there are others out there too. I'm also seeing firms using technologies that aren't fintechs. They're not specific to financial advice. They're more generic: video conferencing, Loom video messaging, all sorts of stuff that they're building in, Calendly. You're using that for booking your appointments. Those kind of technologies are starting to come in more and more now, because I think there's been a realization, because we were forced to do it, that actually this doesn't have to be as hard as perhaps we thought it was. And it's different how it was 10 or 15 years ago. And so, that realization has helped drive that adoption of all sorts of different technologies across the industry, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go on to moneyinfo. So you joined moneyinfo in 2010. So tell us a bit more about what it is, but also why you decided to join the company. Because I always find that really interesting and important part of the journey.
It's an interesting one. So when I'd been at First Software for nearly around about 10 years, the business sold. And I was part of an earnout process with that. And, as we do with moneyinfo, we all had share options in the business, which is fantastic, because you share in the growth of that business and the value that business ultimately realized. And it gave me the opportunity to kind of step out and do something for myself. So myself and Chris, who's our CTO at moneyinfo now, and Sim, who's our business development director, who I know you know too, we set up our own business called FinQS that was we developed our first product, which was a client feedback solution for financial advice firms, very much focused around treating customers fairly and how firms could monitor their clients' feedback. And we had some success with that. It was great. And as part of that, we'd kept in touch with Mick Cons, who's our CEO today at moneyinfo, and he'd invested in what was then the moneyinfo business. It was under a different name in those days, and he got us together and said, "I want to bring you guys in to help make this happen," essentially. And that's what he did. We've still got our client view feedback product today. That's used by probably around about 800 advisors, across some of the networks as well. And we basically rebuilt moneyinfo from the ground up from that point. And, we were very early to market with this kind of technology. I think at the time it was really interesting because people weren't using client portals. So we had very much what's one of those and why do I need one? And this concept of bringing together, all of a client's finances is in one place was where it started. So their aggregated data, their portfolio from their advisor, alongside their properties and their bank accounts and their other, assets, liabilities, insurances, was quite novel. And that's where it really started. And now we've kind of grown into a kind of fully fledged client portal that's really very much focused around helping advisors, power planners, administrators, planners work with their clients digitally, communicate with their clients digitally, share documents, share information, give them a view across all of their, their portfolio, their assets, their liabilities. And it's become much more a servicing than a reporting tool, I guess, for financial advice firms. And now more than ever, helping firms support that kind of hybrid model where it complements the, I'm going to say face-to-face in inverted commas, advice that they give in, because more often than not these days it is via video conferencing, but it's still in my mind face-to-face. Or if they're out, on the road, as some have started to get back out seeing clients, it's supporting those processes. So it's really grown as a product. And now, as you'll know, and hopefully everybody else listening will know, client portal is kind of the key piece of technology in an advice firm now, is how you deliver those services to your clients and how you deliver that really great experience. So it's been a really interesting journey, and we were first to market with it. And, in my view, we're still well ahead of the game with it as well. So watch this space. moneyinfo's got lots more to do, but we've got a fantastic product and a fantastic team today that we've built. It's been really exciting. I've loved it.
Yeah, no, it is. It's definitely an amazing product. I just mentioned to you that I just had a look at it just now, and it is really, really brilliant. And for me, it's really exciting when I look at products like this, because for me, it's this is the future of financial planning, financial services, and actually it's really exciting because I spent a really long time with people saying, well, what's a financial advisor, what's a financial planner, like your job must be really boring and not very exciting. And I see products like this, I'm like, look where it's going, and it's a great job anyway, and it's a great industry, a great career, but more stuff like this, you're just like, oh, the future's really exciting.
And it is, and I always used to find myself almost making excuses for working in financial services when people say, "What do you do for a living?" "Oh, and I'd love to tell you I was, a spy or an archaeologist, but I work in financial services." But actually, more often than not, what we do at Money Info is we get our smartphone out and we say, "This is what we do," and we make this, and people get it because we've all got finances that we need to manage. We've all got things that we need to keep secure and documentation that we get that perhaps we don't want to pile up on that sideboard. We'd rather have it accessible through our iPad or a smartphone or our desktop. So now I've stopped making those excuses, and I just say, well, I'm in Fintech, which is a pretty cool thing to do, and here's what we do, and you can have a little play with my demo account and see what it's all about. So yeah, it's funny how we used to make excuses for being dull and boring, but we're not, are we? We're very exciting. No, we're
absolutely.
Very cool. I'm totally cool, obviously.
Absolutely. Definitely. And you moved into the role as managing director in 2016. Mm-hmm. So tell us about this transition into this role.
Well, I kind of came on board and quite quickly was sort of operations director was my role. So I was kind of doing most of the MD role for a while anyway. So it was kind of a natural transition for me. And Mick kind of sat me down and said, "Look, I think you should be managing director of this business. I want to make you MD. Basically, I've got support of the rest of the board, and the team were brilliant. They were really excited. I got a big cheer and a round of applause when we kind of announced it. And that's where I've been today. So it was kind of a natural. I'm I'm an organizer. I don't want to say this out loud, but I can be a bit of a control freak, which I think helps when you're running a business because you've got to keep everything running and kind of lead the ship, steer the ship. But I've got it's not all about me, to be honest. The team that we've built are absolutely fantastic. They're a talented group of bright people that just go for it, and that's exactly what we look for at Money Info. It's it makes my job a lot easier, put it that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so what does sort of like an average day look like for you, if there is such a thing?
Well, oh gosh, it can be any number of things. We're a relatively small team of around 25 people now. We're growing. We've grown through both lockdowns, and we're still recruiting at the moment for a few roles. We're always on the lookout for people, but we are a relatively small team, so we all kind of roll our sleeves up and get stuck in. So I'm involved with, I guess, all areas of the business, from product development through to client services, through to sales. So sometimes I'll be supporting Sim on some of his, prospect meetings or scoping exercises we might be doing for some of our larger firms. I get involved in account management. I help with implementation. I like to be on the ground, getting involved with our clients. And, I'm the business sponsor if we're doing development work. So I'll be in meetings with the team, we'll be having technical discussions, and they'll be showing me design work and functional work that they've done and seeing what I think, and I can have input into that. So I get involved in a little bit of everything, really. I'm not sat there, with a green leather top desk pointing and directing. Maybe one day, this time next year, Rodders, I'll be that important. But we're kind of one big team at Money Info. We've got a very flat structure, and I've got some brilliant people around me. So no 2 days are the same. I get to talk to a lot. I do most of my day is spent talking, to be honest. Chanelle, that's what I do, really. I talk all day, but it seems to work. So yeah, it's really good.
Oh, amazing. I love that. And you did mention, obviously, the future of Money Info is very exciting. You're going lots of different places. Are you able to tell us a little bit about the future of Money Info, sort of what you've got in the pipeline, or is that sort of under wraps?
No, I can talk a bit about where we're going. I guess as a business, we are growing. We're continuing to invest in people. We're growing organically, and we're investing in people as we go along. So that's really exciting, and I love that, because bringing new people into a team, it kind of changes the dynamic. You learn something new. It might change the way you work sometimes, and so that's been exciting and continues to be so. So growing the business from a product perspective, what we're seeing really, I guess, is a shift in how advice firms are working with their clients. And it's been much more about using digital technologies to support the advice and planning process, not to replace the advisor or planner or paraplanner or administrator, but to help, make them more productive, to take away some of the heavy lifting, to make businesses more secure, and at the same time to deliver a really great experience. But it's not just about the client-facing experience now, it's also about how we engage with advisors and planners and administrators to make sure their experience is good as well. So, we have a smartphone app for advisors. It's not just about giving the client that, because why would an advisor want to use a WhatsApp-style messaging system in their secure environment to message with their clients? That kind of stuff. So we're growing the product in a number of areas. We always focus on client and advisor experience, secure communications, automating key processes where we can. So we've recently, last year, rolled out kind of workflow functionality to allow firms to build in their client reviews, their onboarding processes. And what we're seeing really is a shift of kind of CRM it's kind of coming out of the back office and into the front office now. And it sits more in the front office, with the client being very involved in that process. And, some clients will want to complete a digital fact find, others will want the advisor to do it for them or planner, others will want to do it in collaboration with that process. So, what I'm a great fan of is look at the manual process that you are trying to support, see how that works, and then translate that into the technology. And, firms shouldn't have to re-engineer their entire business process to use a piece of technology. It's so easy to make these things, configurable today, that you should be able to support the different processes that our advisors and planners are using. So for us, I guess it's, more of the same, but it's growing our product, growing our client base, and growing our team to really start changing the way that advice and planning can be delivered and how you guys can work with your clients. So it's exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And is looking into the future, do you think that's the way sort of all financial advice firms will go? Do you think we'll look a lot more techie is what I was going to say? What do you think, being in the world of fintech, what do you guess the future might look like?
I think being more techie is a good way of putting it. And it's definitely the direction of travel. It's been happening for a while. It was happening before the pandemic and lockdowns forced us into new ways of working, to be honest, but it's certainly been accelerated. There's been a realization, there was a misconception that my clients won't use tech. They won't, they're of an older generation. They're high net worth individuals. They're, 55 plus. They couldn't possibly use a smartphone or an iPad. But actually, that's not true. We've seen that's not true. And I think that, that perception has changed and clients are open to it. In fact, to some extent, they expect it. Having your valuations available online is kind of a hygiene factor now. That should be something that every client can get, and then you can kind of take it on from there. So I think we're certainly seeing that as the direction of travel. But one thing we are strong believers at moneyinfo is this isn't for us about robo advice and self-serve and D2C. This is about supporting advisors and planners in working with their clients and complementing the stuff that you do. Because for me, you can never replace that conversation that you have with your clients. And that's the bit that they really value, because what they're essentially buying from you is peace of mind, right? Peace of mind that they are, going to be financially independent at some point in their lives, and that they've got a plan as to how to get there. And that's the real value. One of my advisors that I spoke to, and I love this, he said, one of the things that, pretty much the first question I ask my clients, my new clients, when I sit down with them is, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And that's a very difficult question for a computer to ask and to understand the answers to, right? It's so nuanced. There's so much, interaction that happens between client and planner or advisor. So we're strong believers that cannot and should not be replaced, because, that's what clients really value. So if we can support that and help take away some of the pain and some of the heavy lifting and help make people more productive and help deliver a really nice branded, superb experience, then that's what we're all about. So it's exciting. I think it's, it's really exciting for planners out there, both existing advice firms that have been around for a while, because, things go in cycles. You always need to look at what you're doing and think, actually, can we shift this up a level? But also, and you'll resonate with this, for, new blood coming into the industry, for younger advisors and planners that are coming through now, and they've got such an appetite to do things differently, that it's exciting for the profession, I think, really exciting.
Yeah, and it was really interesting what you said there about sort of robo advisors and stuff, because this is a conversation I have all the time, not just with older style advisors, but just sort of people in the industry. And they say I get quite excited about the next generation of clients and the next generation needing financial planning and all this sort of thing. And often people will say, well, they just want the robo advisors, they just want the apps, they don't want to speak to a person. And I'm like, you're wrong. Like there is of course people out there that will just want the app.
Yeah.
However, what I have found is I've spoken to many individuals that have said they've tried the apps, they've looked online, and actually it's a bit much. They want to speak to a human, they want someone to tell them it's going to be okay, this is what they got to do, they want a relationship, they want a connection. An app just isn't enough for a lot of people.
And you're right. And this is why, let's face it, Robo hasn't taken off in any huge way, has it, in this country? It just hasn't. And the reason it hasn't, and it's no rocket science or great surprise, is because there's a lack of human connection there. And I think it doesn't matter who we are, what age we are, if we're making what to us is a big financial decision, whether I'm investing £20,000, £100,000 or £1 million, that to me is a big financial decision. And I want someone to give me the reassurance of saying, this is the right thing to do. And this is where you're going to get to, and to hold my hand through that process. So I think we are naturally, as human beings, we want that human contact. We are relationship driven. That's the way we work biologically, isn't it? If nothing else. So I think you're absolutely right. I think some people, they will want to do it themselves, and there is a place for it. Of course there is. But I think for a lot of people, it is about that human interaction and that reassurance and peace of mind they get from good financial planning and advice.
Yeah, 100%. And I thought a prime example the other day was something went wrong on my banking app. I don't know what I did, but I put something in the wrong place. I did the wrong thing, and I was panicking. And I was trying to. They were like, right, speak on the online chat, and I was typing away, and I was like, I just want to speak to a person. I was like, just answer the phone. I was like, and I'm 25. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm the classic person that people I speak to would say, oh, you just want an app. You want it all to be like tech and online. And I was like, all I want to do is speak to a person before I have a full blown meltdown. Because
exactly, yeah,
it will make it better.
And it's soul destroying, isn't it? And that, that's another. I'm going to just plug moneyinfo a bit here, but it is important because it's part of our philosophy. Is that what I know from working in financial advice is that when you have a problem, you want to pick the phone up and speak to somebody about it. 100%. So from our perspective, I've always said we are a phone first organization. I want to be talking to our clients every day, every week. Whether it's answering their queries, helping them with a support call, or taking them to the next level of adoption of their portal to make sure they really get value out of the investment they make in the technology. Pick the phone up. And I always say to clients, pick the phone up and ring us at any time, because it's more efficient quite often. It's quicker because you're not going through some chatbot that's trying to determine what you're after, but actually can't. And you just want to pick the phone up, ring and speak to someone. And it's so important. And that, for your industry as well, your job is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it will ever die off. I just think, and I think some people think it will, but I don't think tech, like robo advisors, all of that sort of thing, they just won't be everything. I think people, they want a person. And
it'll be a sad day when we all stop talking to each other and, end up in the metaverse or whatever, Exactly. I'm just like, this is terrifying. No, let's not go there. Let's have a conversation, because it's what we all value in all walks of life.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And that leads nicely onto your Money Info podcast I wanted to talk about. So Money Info has a podcast called Advisor Tech Unplugged. I hope I got that right. So tell us a bit more about that, what it is.
So we run a regular podcast, and it's hosted sometimes by me, sometimes by Lou, our support and adoption manager. Ollie, our head of marketing's done a few as well. Sim, our business development director. So various people at Money Info get involved, and we chat to lots of different people across our industry and our profession, from people working in Fintech to financial planners and advisors, to providers of certain services within the industry, just to find out a little bit more about what they do, and very much like you and I are doing, to just give an insight into different areas of the industry, and hopefully people will listen and pick up, some nuggets of information that will be insightful and useful for them in their jobs, in their roles. And we've had some really interesting guests on there, from, people working in in the marketing and branding space, to some of our clients talking about their experiences with Money Info, from their implementations to, how they're working with technology in their businesses and other pieces of technology they might be using. So yeah, it's a big mix of all sorts of different people and characters, just to give people an insight into, what we're all doing, and hopefully, some of it people will take it away and maybe adopt for themselves in their own businesses.
Yeah, and I have listened to the podcast. I can confirm it is very good. So
I'd recommend
that people go and have a listen.
Almost as good as this one. Almost as good as this one.
Thank you. So the next few questions I ask every guest. So the first one is, what has been the biggest obstacle in your career so far that you've had to overcome?
I'm a very, very positive person, I have to say. So I don't really do obstacles. I kind of get on with it. And I just think, well, I'm very lucky. I've had a great career. I've worked hard and I've achieved a lot. So I do work with my husband. So he is Money Info CTO, which a lot of people don't realise at first. I think they think we don't like each other at first. No, they don't. But that probably is, has been something that we've had to be mindful of, because we're kind of a bit of the heartbeat of Money Info. We don't switch off. We go down the pub and we chat about stuff, because we're both, enthusiastic and energized by the whole thing. But sometimes you have to say, do you know what, Sunday afternoon, we should leave the phones at home and we should just go and talk about something else. So I think, I wouldn't say it's an obstacle. He'd hate to be described as an obstacle. I know whether
What's your obstacle, my husband?
Yeah, I don't know whether he'd describe me as an obstacle, probably. But you just have to be mindful of that. But it's lovely because there's Chris and I in the business. We have Jules, who's our senior BA. His daughter started working for us during lockdown, and she's kind of the next generation of Govias that's coming through the business. So we've had a brother and sister working in the business. So I love it, because it's just a nice thing to have. We're not worried about it at all. But you just have to be mindful when you're in a business together that there. And I guess you have this as well, right?
I was just about to say, I can totally relate, because obviously I work with my dad. So
yeah, you've got to be, you just be careful that you do get that downtime, and it's not all about, Money Info or where you're working. So yeah, but I wouldn't say it was an obstacle. We don't do obstacles. We just,
I like that response. I like the response that we don't do obstacles, and positive mindset. I'm all about a positive mindset and turning things into a positive. So I love that. And what about your biggest achievement in your career so far?
Oh, well, definitely not on my own at all, but getting Money Info to where we are today, building the team of people that I have around us. And some of those came from First Software. So Mick always says we almost got the band back together when we kind of started Money Info. But I think it's building the team, and it's the culture that we've got in the business. Because to me, our technology, I'm going to say this, is absolutely fantastic. There's nothing like it out there, and it's brilliant. But the reason it's brilliant is because of the people that sit behind it. And without them, it wouldn't be anywhere near where it is today. So I love the people that I work with, and I'm really proud every day of what they do. And that is definitely my biggest career achievement today.
Amazing. I love that. And what piece of advice would you give someone that's starting out in their career?
I would say go for it. Be curious and inquisitive. Ask questions, and don't be afraid. What I look for now when I recruit people is to recruit for an attitude. And that's all about somebody that wants to grab things and really make it their own, take accountability, don't worry about making mistakes. We all do them every day. Just go for it. Take ownership of stuff and be really curious and inquisitive, and don't be afraid to challenge. So I think that it's that attitude that's important for me, and that's the biggest piece of advice that I would give someone starting in a career today. It's just build your confidence and really go for it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think I've definitely tried to go with the whole just go for it over the last 6 months, and it's crazy how much of a difference it makes. Like a lot of things I would have said, oh no, I'm not going to do that, but I've just sort of twisted it and thought, okay, I'll just give it a go. And even like the rapidness of what that then leads to is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about just not being afraid, isn't it? It's okay to make a mistake as long as you recognize it and you do. And in fact, when you make mistakes, if you make a mistake with a client, if you turn it around and deal with it really well, and you're honest and transparent about it, but you make it better, they tend to be your best advocates moving forward. That's how, exactly, everybody is. So definitely.
Amazing. And we are coming to the end now, but I always love to ask for a book or podcast recommendation if you've got one for us.
Oh, well, okay. I'm going to be really bad at this. Well, podcast, definitely listen to the Money Info podcast on moneyinfo.com, available on all good podcast streaming services. But have a listen to that, and we'd love to hear what people think of it. Or if anybody's out there that would like to be a guest and thinks they've got some interesting stuff that they'd like to chat about, we're always keen to welcome people to our podcast. Book-wise, I am not a reader of like non-fiction business motivational books or anything like that. I've read one or two, but it's not my thing. When I read, I devour books on my Kindle, because if I wake up in the night, I just switch it on and I'm there. And they're generally thrillers, murders. I love historical fiction. I mean, I'll pretty much read anything from Harry Potter to, I don't know, anything else. But I'm not a great reader of nonfiction, I have to confess. So I've got no smart motivational business books to recommend to any of your listeners. But if they want some good recommendations for a thriller or a historical novel or something like that, then I'm your woman, definitely.
Amazing, perfect, amazing, Tessa. Thank you. If anyone wants to connect with you, where can they find you?
So moneyinfo.com is the website. You can follow us on Twitter at moneyinfotech, or we're all called moneyinfo somebody. So I'm at moneyinfotess if you want to connect with me on Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, so look for me on there. But always keen to hear from people. So do get in touch if you found anything I said remotely interesting today in my ramblings.
Amazing, thank you. You've been an absolutely brilliant guest.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's really good to chat to you. I've really enjoyed it, Chanelle, so thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really do hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please do subscribe, rate and review, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, Chanelle. To catch all episodes in the Her Future Bright series, make sure you subscribe to the Money Marketing Podcast. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, and directly from moneymarketing.co.uk. Whether you've been an advisor for decades or if you're looking to start your journey, you'll find plenty of useful content on our website. To ensure you never miss out, sign up to our newsletters, register for our magazine, and give us a like or follow on Twitter and LinkedIn. We also hope to see you at one of our events later in the year. Until next time, goodbye.